Welcome to Broker's Playbook. Today I have Mr. Phil Soper, CEO of Royal LePage Services, joining me to talk a little bit about what's happening in the Canadian marketplace, as well as all his insight and advice on how to handle this market, what we need to be doing to persevere through this most difficult time in real estate that I have lived through and seen. So I'm very, very excited to have you join us. Phil, welcome to Broker's Playbook.
Hey, delighted to be here. Over the years, we've done various things together through media. I always enjoy them. You've got great questions, and we always seem to run out of time.
Yes,
we've got more on our minds
yes, we do.
than people have the ability to absorb. But I'm really looking forward to it. And I wanted to start, Simeon, by congratulating you personally for a non-core business thing that you're going to be doing this fall. You are joining the Royal LePage Challenge Series for the first time.
First time.
And are going to be this fall. I see the fear in your eyes.
Yes.
You're going to be joining a small group of people who have already raised over $1 million for our charity. And if you'd like, you can tell your listeners where that money will go. Mm-hmm. In the foundation, but we will be attempting to hike the world's largest active volcano in Ecuador. It's going to be hard as hell. What were you thinking?
So first of all, I haven't actually spoken about this outwardly at any point, and it's actually, I haven't felt any type of feels per se about it until now. I have been training. I've had a personal trainer now for 6 months.
You have lost weight. You look considerably fitter.
I have definitely lost weight, and I'm definitely stronger, which I'm proud of personally for me.
You look great.
Thank you. And it is this was a big push for it. Knowing, because I was already on a fitness journey. I started about 2 years ago. I've lost almost 70 pounds. Overall.
Holy crow, man.
Yep. It was, I mean, I turned 40 and I was almost 300 pounds. And I had to make a change.
Some of the people we love.
That's correct. So it's almost half of me for the love of God. So that's kind of what triggered the change. And when we were in Winnipeg last year for the conference, we had launched some new business initiatives and we were all having fun. And the charity came on and was speaking to, what women are going through. So for everybody to know, I'm participating in the Royal LePage Shelter Foundation's initiative, which provides shelter, counseling, and resources for women who are in relationships that end badly.
Yeah, and we call it intimate partner violence. It has spiked 40% since the beginning of the pandemic. Too many women and kids locked in dangerous
toxic relationships and environments.
Too many incredible tragedies. We have an agent, one of our colleagues in Montreal, her daughter-in-law was murdered just 2 weeks ago. When it hits that close to home, you realize, and here's one of the other challenges, cash-strapped governments at all three levels are cutting back on the funding towards women's shelters and violence prevention programs. So private organizations and individuals like you are stepping forward. And the Royal LePage Shelter Foundation is the largest in the country.
Private
foundation, funder.
So to be honest, that's why I like it so much, because obviously I'm a Royal LePager, and it doesn't matter if you're with any of the big brands, they're real brands with real governance. For me to feel good to put significant dollars and mustard and effort behind it,
yes,
I need to know that things are going to go the way they say they're going to go. And obviously, I trust Royal LePage because I've been part of the organization for a long time.
100% of the money you raise will go to the cause.
So, and that's just it. So in this case, I was inspired by it. I also have my personal experience in life. My partner, Caroline, she was a social worker for 15 years.
She saw it all.
So my home, I know what she's seen because I'm her partner and she has to speak to someone. In that line of business, child protection services has a burn rate of 5 years. The people in it the
It's
average
so
is
hard.
5 years. She
So
did
hard.
15 before she said, you know what, no more. I just can't do this no more. And for anybody listening, whether you've lived through it, know somebody living through it, or you're blessed enough to know nobody through it, know that it's very real, know that it's happening as we speak. And only by doing something about it will change happen. So for anybody that can, please give. For everybody who cannot give resources, feel free to share this message because that is free. And bringing awareness brings change.
There you go.
I'll leave that at that.
And, you know, from a business perspective, what the research shows is consumers, particularly younger consumers, want to work with someone they see has a social philanthropic thrust in their business practice. They want to work with a realtor who they feel is giving back to the community. It doesn't make sense. These communities, we're so local in what we do, and they provide us with such wonderful livings. Everybody, I don't care what the thrust of your giving is, should have as part of their business plan, not just driving higher revenue, more sales, but also what's my personal social philanthropic strategy.
Well, I think it's a huge component. So I believe in like the way we've built our business, and I'm speaking to myself and Jazz Takar, who is my business partner at REC Canada. The way we built our business is based on community. So we built a community first, which resulted into a stable, multi-transactional business because they knew what we were about before. So it's a natural fit for somebody who knows and is a fan of what you do to transact with you. So the business became the result of the relationship.
Right.
Not transaction first, relationship after. Stay in touch. We stayed in touch 15 times before we ever did a deal. Value first. So now putting philanthropic or putting community driving into the front seat, that's if the reason people advertise at the community arena is to get in front of the community.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So the reason people put pumpkin drives and turkey drives, and yes, you want it to result into business, but even like if your heart's in the right place, if you're putting a couple hundred turkeys out on Thanksgiving, there's a reason somebody's going to call you because it's a nice thing to do.
You're right. Your heart is now, and I think in a advisory services business like ours, where you're offering advice and counsel.
You are the business.
Me say this before. We don't sell houses. We sell advisory services. We advise people on the brokerage process, and we're financial advisors. We're community advisors. We're we offer advice and counsel for a fee. We're the people business, and if you're going to be good in this business, you feel good when you work with people to make their lives better.
That's right.
And that sometimes you charge a fee for it, and sometimes you spend your money, your cash, to give back. And both of it should make you feel good if you're going to be an honest, successful practitioner.
And that's just it, the honest, successful practitioner. So in many cases, I've said this a few times before, even if you're not genuinely a nice person, and some people are just not genuinely nice, even if
right. We all know those.
We all do. Pretend to be nice because pretending to be nice will eventually make you nice.
I agree.
But by doing those nice things, and you might win at the end of it if that's kind of where your heart is. But to leave that at that, Phil, because I have some ground to cover with you.
Get on to some business stuff.
We will. I am going to, since we brought it up, cat's out of the bag. There's an email going out in the next couple of days on October 5th. Yours truly is throwing a massive fundraiser in the city of Toronto, in the West End. Please look at my personal socials at @SPapaElias across all the platforms. Check your inboxes. But if you want to help You can attend the event by buying tickets. You can give directly to the foundation via a link in my bio. And of course, to sponsor the event, should you be in the position to do so, there is going to be a massive Ecuadorian and a massive flag for the event itself.
Nice.
That we're all going to be signing, and the Ecuadorian flag is going to be given to the base base
awesome.
of the Calipaxi Mountain, which is the highest base camp for an active volcano on the planet. So I'm getting a little intimidated, but it's going down. So
Awesome.
it's going down.
I look forward to taking those steps with
So anybody reach out if you have any questions. On to the business of real estate. Lots of changes, lots of speculation, lots of volatility, all the big hot words.
Yep.
Nothing's changed for the better in the last year and a half. It has changed for more confusion. I'm not going to say for the worse, because it's confusion. Any market status is good or bad. It's just the market. Mm-hmm. So I don't care to characterize good market, bad market, because good is bad for some, bad market's good for some. Depends what lenses you're wearing on the day. Because I know investors right now cashing in on other people's anxiety.
Yep.
So
absolutely.
Bad market for the guy selling, great market for the guy buying. So good and bad is subjective. So let's be objective. We have seen a series of over a dozen interest rate increases based on the printing of money that took place the 3 years continuous, trying to have a country go on welfare, basically, because that's what happened. It was a social assistance project, I suppose, that lasted 2.5 years. So everybody in the country is getting a check, billions of dollars. It's insanity.
That's certainly part of it. Yeah.
Part of it. It results in an inflationary time of 8% plus.
The peak a year ago.
At the peak a year ago. They take all the measures. They do all the things. We have seen a change in real estate, myself obviously included. I have a large team that typically does between 600 and 800 transactions a year.
A machine.
We are sitting at a cool 40%, 35% down year over year. The market's down 50%. We're outperforming the market. There's a small win for our egos, but in business, in black and white, when we're looking at ledgers, the truth is the truth. And for an organization, and I'll speak to, again, myself a little bit, I'm used to going up every year by 5 or 10% or 15%.
It kind of sucks when you go back.
I'm hurt.
Backwards.
I'm hurt in every way.
Well, maybe I can ease the hurt a little.
And let me finish.
Okay.
My brothers and sisters in the business, 85, 90% of them share this feeling that of hurt. Like how, so you're volunteered already to tell us. My question to you is this. Where do we start when we wake up in the morning? What is our thought? Where do we go?
Okay. So one of the things that is just inherent in my job is I've got to be taking a longer view than people on the front lines, like your team.
Yes.
I've got to understand what are sometimes called mega trends. What are the big things moving our industry? And I can tell you sort of a little foreshadowing that they're very positive for the industry. The short term, the fall of 2023 isn't where we would like it to be. The medium to longer term, call it the rest of the decade, looks very bright indeed for the Canadian and the North American.
I am very much in agreement. Very much in agreement.
So I see three mega trends, if you want to call it that have changed the world of the housing industry and the world of real estate brokerage. There's more, but I thought in anticipation of our chat today. I boil it down to three. So one you've already touched on, which is a move from an ultra low interest rate environment to a medium interest rate environment. And I can give you a little bit of color on that if you want to go there. The second one would be the demographically immigration and household size driven increase in the number of households we need in this country, far outpacing our ability to build. So we have, and that's good news when you're in the business of advising clients on something that is exploding, a market that's exploding. I mean, we could be in tobacco or even oil and gas. It's pretty good for oil and gas right now.
We could be in tobacco. Yeah, your stock's going down.
These are not industries that have a real bright future. They're good right now. And I grew up in Alberta, Calgary. My very first career, brief though it was in the oil industry. I wouldn't advise my kids to get into the oil industry, right? I think it's peaked.
Yes.
There's some profits to be made, but they're sort of skim profits.
The big day has peaked.
Yeah. And, so that's one, two. And the third mega trend that's impacting our industry was a sharp movement up during the pandemic, but it was already underway. It's a technological and socially driven change in where people are living or where they might live. And I would throw out a hypothesis that say our careers are no longer the driving force behind the homes we buy, right? It's things like affordability and lifestyle, because
the digital nomad and the ability to work outside the office.
So which is fascinating, right? As a mega trend, we've for as long as since the Industrial Revolution, we live where our work is. And that's no longer the number one driver. Now it is where we want to live. Housing, I think, is a bigger driver of where we live than what we do for a living. Kind of fascinating. But back to that inflation one, if you want me to give just my little.
Absolutely, I do.
Okay. So I think the first thing we have to understand is, why the hell was inflation so low? Why was inflation 1.5%? If you look over the last century, or particularly the last half century, inflation is typically, it's been tough to keep under 3%. And now we're bouncing between 3 and 4, if you look at, the post-pandemic world. And it's going to be tough to get it down to 2.5. So a couple of things that drove it there. One was globalization. So you threw a product out on the market, someone in Vietnam or China, or it might have been Israel, somewhere in the world, someone would say, I can produce that for less. And because of globalization, the ability to buy and sell on a global basis.
Well, logistics made that possible.
Yeah, and the Amazons of the world and this sort of thing, it kept the price of products from rising over time. So we had the things we bought and we used every day were almost artificially cheap. And of course, there's a cost to globalization, and the pendulum swung, and global tensions between mega powers like China, Russia, Europe, North America, the United States, Canada, have created more of an insular look. I don't think it's a good thing for consumers or the world in general, but it's a reality. So there's going to be less cheap stuff to buy on the world than there was. The second thing that kept inflation so low was demographics. You've heard of boom bust echo, the baby boomers, the bust, which was the Gen Xers, which I think you are, and the maybe you're cusper.
I'm at the cusp. I'm a 1980s baby. So 1980 is, some people count it, some people don't count it. I'm at the cusp.
So that created a world in which most workers were in the baby boom, because there was a lot of them and there was many fewer Gen Xers. So why would that keep inflation low? Well, as workers got older, they weren't bugging their bosses for raises. They were keeping their heads down and saying, maybe if he doesn't notice me, I won't get laid off. And so there was less inflationary pressure on the wage side because we had an aging workforce who'd already paid for their house. They already got their kids through school. They didn't need the kind of raises, and inflation was low from all that good stuff. Well, so that era is ending because of the millennials. So millennials are roaring in. They are actually bigger
Spenders
than the boomers, and they're young, and they want, and they want, and they want, and they're greedy like people are, and they want raises, and it's putting upward inflationary pressure.
Consumerism through is the last 2 decades be the rise of social media and the digital revolution on the planet, the internet revolution on the planet. I remember being 1996. We had just moved to Canada.
Yep.
And I knew the internet existed. It had launched 2, 3, 4, 5 years before.
Yeah,
but we're still talking
commercial
clunky,
internet,
clunky Macs in the schools. And I would go to, there was a site called Skate Talk. It was like a blog. I can't even remember what they're named. Not blogs, chat rooms.
Yep.
Like, this is no cell phones. This is like
MSN.
MSN.
You know, the first social.
The MSN chat, like a WhatsApp. Yes.
Yeah. Of course, you had to be sitting in front of a big CRT.
ICQ
terminal.
or there was ICQ. Anyways, there's a few. But like you slowly started developing this class of comparing yourself to others syndrome, which led consumerism, which led inflation. So the spending and the demand for product over those years is where we see that curve go spiking up.
So where do we find ourselves today? We find ourselves, if you look at the last 50 years and you look at the bank rate, it's, what is it? 5.75 in the US, 5 in Canada, which will impact the dollar, but that's another story. We're right kind of on the last 50-year average. We're just way higher than we're used to since the Great Recession of 2008.
Yes.
So for a lot of people who are relatively, younger in their real estate careers, they don't remember the 90s and the 80s and things when interest rates were at this level. I tell a story well before my time. I got into real estate in 2002. If you go back to 1981, the CEO of the time, Gordon Gray, stood up in front of the Royal LePage conference, national conference in September, and said, if we can just get mortgage rates down to 17 or 18%, we can get this market going again. And they peaked in September of 1981 at 21.4%. 21.4. And guess what? The colleagues, our predecessors back in the day still sold houses. People still wanted to own their homes. 21% mortgage rates. So we're a long way from that. Yes, it feels insanely expensive when you had a number of years at 1.5 or 2.25. Now you're paying 5 or 6.
Well, there's a couple of big items in there. I think even when interest rates were 21% or 12%, because a lot of maybe not us, but our parents lived through those 12 and 14s. And with that being said, homes are $1 million now.
It's true.
That's
true.
And I'm speaking to the major urban markets, houses being more affordable in some of the smaller cities such as Calgary, Edmonton, Winnipeg, Saskatchewan, even Montreal. But Vancouver and Toronto, that holds, 50% of the country's population, is sitting at over $1 million average home price. And when interest rates go from 2 and 3 to 6 and 7, it's a bag of nickels to the face is what it is. It hurts.
And there's a lot of math in here. It is true that home prices have outpaced wages and salaries over the last 20 years because of that number 2 mega trend on the supply of homes, which I know we'll get to. But, if I look at a real estate manager they make somewhere, depending whether you're a small city, big city, expensive city, cheaper city, somewhere between, call it 70 and $140,000
Yes.
a year now. And back when interest rates were high in the 80s and things, they were making, $40 to $50,000 a year. So we've got to talk in quote unquote real dollars, compare incomes to expenses. Yep. But I accept your premise that relative to incomes, homes are more expensive now. I will say you've got a national audience, right?
Yes.
Yeah. When I started back, I mentioned the 2002 number, the ranking of the most expensive homes in the country, it went Vancouver, Calgary, Toronto. And now Calgary is about the same price as St. John's, Newfoundland, right? So we do have affordable places in this country. Montreal's affordable, Calgary's affordable, Halifax is affordable. And people
the city
in those
of
cities
Champions,
are probably saying
Edmonton
to me,
is affordable.
it's not affordable. Well, I can tell you, relative to incomes, Vancouver and Toronto are way more expensive. But Vancouver and Toronto are no worse than New York or Boston or San Diego or San Francisco.
The minute you get to that global city demographic, where anybody from anywhere, no matter what they're used to, can thrive in your city, that's to me is the standard of a global city.
Yeah.
You want to be a world-class city, somebody coming from Vienna can find language, can find culture, can find work, can provide work at any level in this city. Somebody coming from Shanghai, same. New Delhi, same.
You're right.
So the minute you reach that status, and good food, and the minute you reach that status, it is an inequity in the scales.
Living becomes tough. I've got a daughter who's got a summer job next year in New York City. It's all range. She's in law school, and we're looking at the cost of living. It's nutty, right? We're going, okay, didn't expect this.
But, I really love you. Do well.
But, she'll be good for it.
So here's my question. We've talked about the problem. I think all of us know and feel and understand this more or less. What do we do about it as real estate advisors, as counsel to our clients? Where do we take the conversation? How do we ease the anxiety?
Good point. So in each of these mega trends that I was hoping we could get through today, the first one being the move from the ultra low interest rate environment to something more moderate. I think the message that a real estate advisor has to take to their clients is don't expect a return to where we were anytime soon. So I know a lot of my people are hoping like this fall interest rates are going to drop, or maybe in January. It's not going to work that way. Think of it. Here's a metaphor for you. You've got a infection like pneumonia or something. The doctor gives you medicine, antibiotics call. You're feeling better. You still have half a bottle of pills to take. And you go, I'm cured. The doc goes, oh no, you finished that bottle. That's central banks around the world. They are the doctor applying sometimes nasty medicine to help the economy get better. They don't want it to creep back again. So we're going to see the medicine, call it higher interest rates, around for longer than a lot of people expect. We're going to see inflation, quote unquote, tamed. We had a little tick up that was caused by gas prices.
Just now.
Just now. But it's not an even road, but we're going to get it. We have the tools. It's those higher interest rates are going to stay around for longer because they don't want the disease to creep back in. Inflation's a nasty disease for an economy. So what people, if you've got clients that are sitting waiting on the sidelines for interest rates to get lower, get over it. They're not going to get lower in the time frame that makes sense for your clients. So they what do our folks have to do? They have to get better educated on, call it financial trends. they can go to some place, whether they're roll of pages or
maybe
not.
I think I may have identified something in what you just
Sure.
said. If we're advisors, it's our intake that has to be improved. So if somebody can wait a couple years,
Yep.
they should. But most call us not when they're 2 years out, they call us 3 to 6 months out, 2 months out. We cannot tell that seller that anything's going to change in a term that's actually going to affect their decision in their life today.
Right. And
So
it's
I think-
really rare in a marketplace that the waiting actually works. And you know this so well, right? So if I'm a seller, I'm almost all the time, I'm also a buyer.
Of course.
If I'm a buyer, if you're a first-time home buyer and you're in this market and you're waiting for interest rates to get lower, maybe you'll luck out. But that second mega trend that I talked about, which is the growth in through immigration, through demographics, this huge millennial cohort coming into home ownership, and the third one being smaller households, is creating an imbalance that won't be solved for at least a decade. And it's going to drive home prices higher, even in the face of high interest rates. So you're going to be this, okay, I'm waiting for interest rates to go down, but how home prices are going to rise.
I think we have discovered some very good advice. So for anybody out there representing buyers, this is something that I just covered with my team in our last team training, is for the buyers waiting.
Yeah.
To the buyers waiting, this is the environment that is best to buy in. The purchase price. So there's an old adage to real estate investors: you make money when you buy, not when you sell. Because we're referring to the purchase price that can never be changed. The purchase price, what you buy something at, can never change. It's the fixed of the investment. The mortgage, being only a tool of making home ownership possible or an investment possible, not only can change, the only thing it does is change. You can negotiate the terms, you can negotiate the terms, you can negotiate the amortization period, the rates are going to change as often as you arrange them to change. If the buyer, the first-time home buyer, can get through the qualification process to buy, this is by far the best time to buy, because they're going to buy for any, depending on the market, of course, but let's call it, there is a 20% variance, 25% variance in some markets that can be leveraged by the savvy negotiator, being us. If we do our jobs, represent them well, we can get our buyers from 5% in some markets to 15% in other markets below prices that just a year ago, when the rates were low, the prices were much higher.
Yep, you're right.
So that $150K, that'll take you 5-10 years to pay off of your life at these types of prices we're talking about. They're not something that you can just throw 20 grand at and the mortgage is down. If your mortgage is 800,000, you're in for a life. Like, this is life now. So you buying at 675 as opposed to 800 is a huge deal today, because in only 2 or 3 years, if you do a 3-year term, for example, you can renegotiate that at 1 or 1.5 points lower. So I think we found a really good piece of advice on what to do now to create deals and wins for your clients.
I agree.
Do you agree with that strategy?
I agree. And I think what you need to, that the reason that today's real estate professional needs to know more about, call it, the economy and financing than they typically do, is because the media, understandably, is full of dire news about the economy and financing and about interest. I mean, the average guy in the street now pays attention to what the Bank of Canada is doing, and that is not normal. So you need, as a real estate professional, to be one step ahead of your client. And the information is out there. It's not complicated. You don't need to, your eyes don't need to gloss over basic stuff. we're in an era where interest rates are going to be higher than they have been. Will they come down? Probably. Will they come down in the medium term when you want to focus your 2024 business plan? No. So explain that to your clients and explain, just as you said, Simeon, why that doesn't mean you need to put your investment dreams, your personal home needs aside because of this environment. And that second one, that continuous upward pressure on home prices, I think it's really important that people be able to explain it really quickly, netly to their clients. So we are adding people to the Canadian population. Why are we doing that? You say, why don't we just cut off immigration? And you hear this, the typical Trumper in the United States will say stuff like, well, it's because the number of people retiring from the workforce is about double the number of people coming into the workforce.
And nobody ever says that, do they?
Oh, it's
that's a huge point.
It is a huge point, and it is a terrifying point for policymakers.
Same as birth and death rates on a bigger picture.
Yeah.
They are not one-to-one.
No.
People dying far outweigh the people being born.
Absolutely. So we're very lucky in Canada that we're not like Japan or Italy or Greece. In that have birth rates of about 1, right? So if you look at South Korea, one of the lowest birth rates in the world, in one generation, parents to kids, there'll be half as many people. If you're only having one child for every couple, half as many. Well, who's going to pay the bills? Who's going to pave the roads? Who's going to keep your favorite restaurant open in your neighborhood? Who's going to keep the school open? So what do you end up with these devastating forward-looking consequences if you don't solve it some way? Well, we're solving it through immigration. And so in a temporary basis, it looks like, oh God, we need more housing than we can afford. We should cut off the stream of highly skilled workers that we're inviting from around the world to come to the world's best country. But guess what? They're paying the bills. They're working. They land. They're
all the
working,
things, the whole cycle.
They're working. So that's number one. Number two, the demographic thing. There are just so many millennials, and they're rolling. They're into their early 40s now, and they're rolling into home ownership. One of the consequences you mentioned earlier, higher home prices, is some research we recently did showed the number of people who are waiting till they're over 35 to buy a home is up 5 points versus pre-pandemic. So people are buying homes later in life. Surprise, surprise, no. They're staying in school longer, and homes are more expensive. And the number
they're getting married later. They're
exactly
all the things,
and they're living longer.
Yep.
So it's not that big a deal. It just means this big millennial cohort is impacting the housing market a little later than, say, their parents did.
Yep.
And the third one is the household size thing. It is fascinating to me. If you go back to my grandparents' age, average home size 6. My parents 4. Now it's gone under 2. So think about that. Just from my parents to now, the number of homes we need to house exactly the same population.
4x.
It's doubled if you go from 4 to 2, right? So we need twice as many homes. And we haven't changed. That's without the population changing.
And that's why the density is so important.
It's right on.
It's so important.
And it's why, for a little segue, we are in exactly the right industry. If you're a young person and you're looking for an industry to hook your cart to, the old adage, a rising tide raises all ships. I'm on the board at Toronto Metropolitan University, the old Ryerson. And when I talk to people in the real estate program there, one of the few schools in the country you can get a degree in real estate through the business school, I say, when you're looking to start your career, it sure helps. You can be a star in any industry. You could be a star in tobacco.
Sure.
And start your career right now. But wouldn't it be nice if the industry itself was expanding? if you're an
And,
AI,
and you know, policy supports its expansion. It almost guarantees its survivorship in a biggest, most robust way.
exactly. So you look at housing, you look at real estate in general. CMHC predicts we need, let's see, I got to do the math here, 6 million homes by the end of the decade. At the current rate, we'll be lucky to build half that many. So what does that mean? Well, it means, number one, we're going to be building a lot of homes, and those homes need to be brokered. And so brokerage is a growth industry. Millions and millions of new homes that need to be brokered, plus all the existing housing stock that needs to be brokered. Great industry to be in. This is an expanding industry. It's sort of like AI, but a lot more fun, because AI isn't fun. Having a nice house, sitting out on the back deck and having a cocktail, that's fun.
Yes, it is.
So this is a great, fun industry. Everybody wants it. Young people want it. Old people want housing. And as this industry grows, there's the shortage. We are not going to catch up. There's a lot of focus every election now, whether it's municipal, provincial, or federal. Either number one or number two platform issue is going to be politicians arguing about who's going to solve our housing crisis.
So that's the conversation at every level of government, I'm talking from town hall in your neighborhood right now, to the city level, to the provincial level, to the federal level.
You got it.
It's
prime ministers, premiers, mayors,
everyone.
They're all, to keep their job, they're going to have to come up with a viable, it might be healthcare, but it's probably going to be housing. That's going to be the number one issue that they have to deal
with. The conservative, the opposition right now in our country, just issued a statement last week that made so much noise that it might actually move him up in the rankings for whatever upcoming election. It's that big of a deal.
Oh, yeah.
Where the reigning government right now just implemented a policy to take effect ASAP on rental stock,
which is going to change the game.
So I got off the phone with a developer that I'm seeing at 4 p.m. today that had a lot right at the entrance, and I'll speak to, I won't say the company, but I'll speak to it because a lot of us know Mimico GO train station.
Sure.
It's one of the biggest stations in the city. And right at the where the new doors for people to walk in and out of Mimico GO train station is a corner on a street called the Blue Goose.
Right.
Okay, so the Blue Goose Tavern is a institution in the city. That got redeveloped. That's still going to be a brewery. But behind it, there were supposed to be 12 townhomes. Approved, gone through zoning. All of a sudden last year, before they ever poured concrete or touched anything, Bill 23 comes through. So every townhome can now be 3. So that goes from 12 to 36, 3x.
Desperately needed.
Desperately needed. The developer looks at his math. Okay, it makes a bit more sense to go with 36. Why don't we actually take a look at doing a mid-rise now instead? Going 6, 7 stories, you can't go much higher there. So they're not looking to change the world, but all I'm trying to get at is in the last 4 years, not only has the world changed, everything and everyone has changed. What was supposed to be a 12, what was replacing 3 homes was going to be 12 townhouses. 12 townhouses became 36 bare minimum as of right. And now if you're going to build 36, you might as well take a look at putting 75 to 90 apartments
and again,
at the door of the GO train station.
Absolutely.
That is the opportunity. Now, if this government says GST is no longer applicable, it almost guarantees the 75 to 90 units, and that's what it's meant to do.
Yes.
So
it's an example of public policy changing our industry and for the better.
And again, supporting the future of the industry. What I was coming full circle. You're saying this is what's happening. This is why there's a bright future. And it literally just happened yesterday on a phone call, and I'm meeting with them today to see if this is the route we're taking.
For you, by the way, for keeping your finger on the pulse of what's happening, because your clients and your business partners, expect that from an advisor, that they pay a handsome fee to
Yes.
solve their problem.
And this is maybe, let's go into our last segment, investment real estate.
Yep.
We spoke to the buyer, the first-time home buyer. We spoke to the seller. Like, if you need to sell, my man, nothing's going to change. Get your price, get your place up, get it done, because the next couple of years, unless you can wait literally for something that we don't know will be better or worse, get your business done. Let's go to the investor.
So we did a fascinating piece of real estate. And I know we leaned on you, as well as some of your colleagues across the country, to be a spokesperson to explain the research to the nation. It found, and this is just a few weeks old, in the early summer,
The investment report.
Yeah, showed 11% of Canadian adults 18 and older were real estate investors. Huge number, 4.5 million people. It showed 25% of Canadians, call it closing in on 10 million people, want to be real estate investors. They want to be, call it landlords. You dive down a little deeper and you go, wow, that's fascinating. Let's see if I get the number. 15% of that 4.5 million people don't even own their principal residence, and they're young. And I've got personal experience.
And they're
with
educated.
This one. My future son-in-law, if he plays his cards right, and is good to my daughter, he and his brother, he's I think 3 years out of school. His brother's 1 year out of school. They just bought a property. They're still renting, right? But
they bought a property,
an investment property. And one of them lives in Calgary. He moved out there for work. And one of them lives in Toronto. They bought in St. Catharines. So what does this say? It says people believe in what you've been offering the market for many years, that being an investor in housing, this industry that's guaranteed to expand over the next 10 to 20 years, just based on the mega trends I've been talking about. We need housing, therefore we need investors, and we need landlords. Some of it will be solved by corporations and purpose-built large scale builds, but most of it will be supplied by entrepreneurs.
Well, I got some sauce for you. I got some sauce for you right there. Institutional investment in housing is on the rise. I can speak to anecdotes on that, but I'm going to give you a stat about downtown Toronto. Downtown Toronto, 1 in 2 doors are owned by investors. In the next 20 years, I can tell you that number is going to be 8 out of 10. Why? Because it's unaffordable to buy real estate in downtown Toronto. It doesn't cash flow, but there is no more downtown Toronto. Being a global city, any global city, the rent, although it may sound astronomical, does not typically service. Typically, when you buy it, when you first buy it,
Sure.
5 or 10 years later, it becomes a cash for life ticket.
Yep.
But there's enough patient investors that are funded enough to be able to buy when the delta is swinging in the red. And this has made the newspapers for the last 5 years. Condo investors bleeding $500 a month on their units. Condo investors losing $1,000 a month on their units. It's easy to say that. And if that were true in the sense of losing, because that to many, myself included, I'm not a speculator if I know the value is going to go up because of external influences. I have data. I'm doing my work. This is part of my due diligence. The $1,000 a month loss is part of my pro forma. Meaning, as an investor-focused realtor, if I'm selling you something that I know is going to be cash flow negative by 12 grand a year, but I also know as a fact that constraints in that micro market are going to push the price up by 50,000, we're up a net 38.
Yep.
Phil.
Yep.
So what's happening is that because I have condos that I bought in downtown Toronto in 2013 for $299.
Nice.
2014, 329. 2015, 375. Those are cash flowing like little piglets. And it's because of the purchase price. I made my money when I bought. Because will I ever sell those? I hope to God I never have to.
Right.
Because I never will if I don't have to.
Right.
But the money, so if somebody wants to tell me I'm not cash flowing in downtown Toronto, you're wrong. It's a matter of when you bought it.
Right.
But if you're buying the same unit now at 700 and the rent's 3,000, for example, it is not cash flow positive.
No.
Because there's maintenance fees, there's taxes, there's mortgage payments at 7%. But what is your investment goals? What is your strategy? What part of your life are you in? Are you looking to have just money carry? Do you need income because you're in your older years? You can't be investing in downtown Toronto if you're planning on leaving your work.
Right.
Because who's going to service the Delta?
Right.
So there is something for everyone. Royal LePage specifically put out the country's report on investment real estate.
Yep.
It's not, I'm not saying it from a company perspective. Sure. We are the only ones who did it. So I would tell all realtors, Royal LePagers, not Royal LePagers, it doesn't matter. If you go to the corporate site, you can get access to the insight.
RoyalLePage.ca media room.
And you can use it. So to all my people and all the brands, it always sounds a little skewed. It's not. Wherever you are, be happy. Leverage the insight into your business to do bigger and more business today. There is also a lot of insight that's coming out right now from various news sources. The investor report that we did for downtown Toronto is also a Royal LePage contribution in there. So I will say everything we referenced today can be found online. If you have troubles finding it, please shoot an email to community@brokersplaybook.com. Phil, anything else?
You know, I guess if I was to summarize our chat, the higher interest rate environment is going to be here for a while. You need to understand it. It is not a death knell for your practice. People find a way into home ownership. Our home ownership rate, 2/3 of Canadians own their own. That is going to continue.
Yes,
so that's number one.
Yes, it will.
Number two, the demand for housing is just going to continue. And there's more demand than there is no way we can build the homes we need. What does that mean? Prices are going to continue to rise, sometimes uncomfortably. We'll be back to double-digit home price increases, and you know, people will be screaming from rooftops about it's going to be a fact of life. It's a vibrant economy. There's a lot of demand. So that's number two. We're going to be in a rising home price environment. Not a bad place to be if you're in the business of brokering this product and your income is related to the value of that product. It's going to be bigger in the future.
Yep.
And then number three, as I taught at the beginning, is people are mobile, right? And they're going to be, the country is like this stage, and particularly young buyers, they're going to be bouncing around all over the place. So you need to, like you do, Simeon, you need a national network of colleagues and friends, because you've got your clients.
Trusted partners. Trusted partners.
Exactly. They're here today, they're gone tomorrow, right? They're off to Guelph or Halifax or Calgary, and then they're back. And some of them will move for lifestyle, some of them move for affordability, and some of them will move for work. But we're in an era of a lot of mobility. People are going to be moving around, and they're not going to be constrained by, I work in Brookfield Place, so I've got to live within 4 blocks of there. No, it's not going to work that way because of remote work. So these three things are changing the way we work. What is not changing is they rely on the advice and counsel of highly skilled realtors who have local knowledge, who are excellent negotiators, who have their best interests in mind, who they can trust. And it's a great place to be, despite the fact that we've got a few weeks of challenging fall ahead of us where, people are uncertain because of inflation and such.
Yeah.
Look beyond it, grind it out in every market. You and I have talked about this in the past. Maybe a closing comment from me. Anyway.
Sure.
in every market, even if the pie gets a little smaller, there are those practitioners who take a slightly larger slice of the pie because they're engaged, they're working hard. They don't go, oh, woe is me. They go, I want a slightly bigger slice of the pie. And then when that pie gets bigger again in the spring, they hang on to that. So, do not despair. The future is bright, and if you keep your head down and work hard, you're in the right industry.
I think keep your head down, keep working hard. This is the time, because no matter what, people are people, and in tough times, the majority of people do run. It's just a fact of life. Those who are courageous and put in the endurance and the reps during these tougher markets,
Well said. Endurance and reps
are going to be the benefactors of larger market share, because they're going to be looked at as the people that led during that time.
Absolutely.
Where I was lost, that person was there. When I needed someone, every bus had his face on it.
Right.
So if you're the realtor that's spending money in marketing right now, where people are running to the hills, you will recover that money tenfold. I know it because I've lived it and I've done it. And I'm not talking about 30 years ago. I've been in the business 16 years, 17 years.
Right.
I've done it twice through the two bad markets that I saw, the one that I was entered into.
Yeah, good timing.
08 is when I joined Royal LePage. 07, I was a Coldwell Banker. I went, oh, wait, my first year. I went to Royal LePage and haven't left since.
The Great Recession.
Correct.
Thank you very much.
So I started in that. So I mean,
maybe one last. You triggered one last
All
thought.
right.
A little last piece of advice. Don't spin the reality of today's market.
That's right.
Speak the truth to your clients. They see right through spin. Don't lie to them. Give them the hard truth, and then tell them the optimistic story.
That is real estate. No, but real estate is the story.
It is.
Anybody trying to time the market gets hurt. It's time in the market.
Right.
Always will be.
Speak the truth, even if it's tough.
All right. I think that is speak the truth. Speak the truth. That is going to be the title of this podcast, because I love it. We touched on philanthropy, reminding everyone, please support me if you can. The women and children in this country deserve your support, whether it's monetary or if it's just spreading awareness. Please support the cause. Second, we got a huge amount of business insight. I'm going to try to get this cut up short and long to share as much of your insight, Phil, that you shared with us here today. I want to thank you for your time. I know it's a commodity, and I appreciate it. Thank you for being here.
Love being here.
My pleasure.
Cheers.
Cheers.